This is a short video that is a review of our 4 exercises assignment that was due at the end of last week. And these exercises were designed to help you really clarify some questions you may have, but also uh, help you to engage in the midterm exam and get some of these, uh, just give you a little bit of help. So, I asked you to locate one psychological line and explain where it is in the painting. So, in this painting by Jeff Koons, um, I discussed in the answer here a psychological line between the woman's face and the inflatable monkey. Psychological lines aren't actual lines, they are ones where one object might point to another object. So, what I wrote is there's a connection between the girl's eyes and mouth and the monkey's face. A psychological line is one that is implied but isn't really there. Generally speaking, one object may be pointing at another object in a way that the viewer is forced to draw a connection between the two. That connection is a psychological line. When there are people or animals in a painting, you might also observe a psychological line between the figure and the thing they are looking at. Question 2. What types of objects does the artist employ? Are they organic, geometric, or non-objective? My answer. The shapes are mostly organic and non-objective. The figure, dolphin, and Popeyes are all organic, whereas the shapes and squiggles that are in the background are non-objective. All these recognizable shapes, I'm calling them organic. The human form is certainly organic. This cartoon even is rather organic because it's not geometrical. It's something that actually looks three-dimensional and you can reach out and touch it perhaps, or reach into the painting and touch it. But these squiggles, all these things, I would refer to them as non-objective. Describe the color pattern of the painting. Describe the colors used, how they relate to each other, and how it is organized on the canvas. I need to clarify. I graded a bunch of these, and I need to clarify that the color pattern refers to the colors. What are the properties of the colors that are used in the painting? The pattern refers to how is the painting organized with colors. Color pattern. The properties of the colors and then how the painting is organized. Overall, the painting feels warm, especially with the use of flesh tones and colors that lean towards a yellow hue. There are also cool colors such as blues and bluish grays. The painting appears to be divided horizontally into thirds, where the top third is the warmest, the middle third is rather neutral, and the bottom third includes large areas of cool colors. So we've got warm colors, these flesh tones and the yellowy colors, but then we have these blacks and blues that, and maybe that gray, feel kind of cool. So it's a mix of both. But I also asked for the pattern. So how is the painting organized? And I described it as being divided into thirds, where the top third of the painting seems a little bit warmer, and then cooler in the middle third, and even cooler on the bottom. What icons does the artist use in the painting? The painting includes Popeye eating spinach to grow strong, inflatable animals, and a young woman dressed like a pinup girl from World War II. Is the composition unified or varied? Explain. The painting is both unified and varied. It is unified in that there is the repeating imagery of Popeye in the background, and the subject matter of the girl riding the dolphin and kissing the monkey is centered in the composition. The non-objective shapes and arbitrary colors that dominate the background are varied. So again, it's a little cop-out, but it's a mix of both. We're unified because we see recurring themes and we have a central focal point, but it is varied because it is both. We've got these arbitrary colors and non-objective shapes. All right, on to the next artwork. We have this painting by Francis Bacon. Locate one implied line, explain where it is in the painting. So what is an implied line? I already explained what a psychological line is, and a psychological line is something that's not there, simply not there. It's where one thing, one object points at another object. That is a psychological line. An implied line is what this question is asking. An implied line is a line that is broken. Your eye makes the connection, but imagine a dotted line or a dashed line, and I see a dotted dashed line here, something here, something here. These are our implied lines. The value pattern of the painting. So, similar to the color pattern, this term is asking you, how is the painting organized? But we are not talking about color. We are talking about value. When you talk about value, you are talking about properties of colors, but you are not talking about colors. To explain, imagine looking at this painting through a black and white television screen. What do you see? Now, these yellow lines have a value to them. And that value is how black or how white it is or how gray. What is that value? And so a dark value is, or a low value is black, and a high or a light value is white. And so I describe this painting as being mostly dark value, and with a contrast of degrees of lighter values, including white and light grays. So the pattern, we're talking about a black field with lighter center. Contrast is part of a value pattern. Contrast is the difference between black and white, or two values. So what is the degree of difference? If you were to isolate the shirt here, or whatever this dude's wearing, we have relatively low contrast, where the darkest dark and the lightest light are closer together. But if you talk about the painting as a whole, this painting has high contrast between dark darks and a very light center. So those are the value, that is the value pattern. Is the texture actual, implied, or subversive? Or any combination thereof? Where are the textures and what meaning, significance, or emotions do they carry? I find this painting to be very spooky because of the subversive texture used by the artist. Texture is mostly in the face and on the chest of the form. It looks both granular and transparent, as though it allows us to see through the brush strokes. I described subversive texture. Subversive meaning something that's unexpected, something that's kind of gross or spooky. But I will also accept implied texture. Implied texture is texture that isn't real, something that is suggested or implied. So if I reach out and I touch this painting, it is smooth to the touch. Actual texture is texture that you can feel with your fingertips. Actual texture is texture that will cut you. Texture that hurts. Texture that is very physical. That is actual texture. When something is smooth to the touch, but you see it, but you see texture, that is implied. That is not real texture. Describe implied motion in the artwork. The figure in the painting appears as though it is a ghost that is either coming or going. It looks as though they are fading in or out of the room. So I'm talking about the transition between coming and going. That is an implied motion because something is happening. Also, and most of you wrote about this, screaming, melting, whatever you come up with. Emotion is, an applied motion is a verb. A verb, it is an action word. What is the focal point of this artwork, and explain your reasoning? The focal point is the face in the center of the painting. The face is the focal point because it stands out through high contrast with the rest of the painting. Also, the golden yellow lines that surround the figure additionally direct the viewer's vision towards the face. So I just listed 2 reasons as to why this face is the focal point. Many of you answered with emotion, saying he's screaming. Of course I'm looking at him. All right, maybe that kind of works, but there are these other these other sort of mechanisms happening that are directing you to the face as the focal point. First of all, it is white where most everything else is black. It's getting lighter here and it's getting lighter here, and it's all this area. But additionally, there are these lines. So you follow the direction of these lines, and they're leading to the same place. Around here, and then that line there, and that line there. They're all pointing here. So those are 2 reasons why this is the focal point of the painting. All right. Iconography in the artwork. And what design elements do you see? This artwork is composed nearly entirely of an American flag made in green, orange, and black. Each of the colors in the flag are opposite of red, white, and blue on the colors of the color wheel. There are brush strokes visible in the inverted flag that show camouflage-like texture. Along the bottom of the artwork is stenciled the word moratorium, which means a temporary stop in an action. Lastly, there is a small circle in the middle of the flag that looks like a hole. That hole is about the size of a bullet hole. All iconography. Describe the color pattern of the painting. Why do you think the artist used the colors they did? The inverted flag is painted with very dark blacks and saturated greens and oranges. Perhaps the inverse of the American flag can represent the opposite of American culture or ideals. That's one thing I wrote. Now, some of these answers are very much I'm asking for your opinion. What I'm writing is not something that is necessarily the absolute truth. I just want to know that you are thinking through the ideas and engaging with these ideas. I wanted you to describe the state of the world, local, national, international, as well as location and events that might help to understand the artwork considering the date it was made. 1969. What was happening in 1969? The Vietnam War was happening in 1969, among other things. It is okay to look up current events when researching artwork. That means jump on your computer, jump on your phone, and look it up. 1969 was the height of the Vietnam War. It was also the era of the Civil Rights Movement. In the 1960s, JFK was assassinated, and so was Martin Luther King and other political and civil rights leaders. Being made in 1969, it was the end of a decade of violence and divisiveness. So we had people getting killed, like politicians getting killed. We had the civil rights movement and people getting killed with that. We had the Vietnam War and people getting killed with that. That was all happening in 1969. What does moratorium mean? Why would he add that word, he being the artist, why would he add that word to the artwork? Now, I don't expect all of you know what the word moratorium means. Again, jump on a computer, open a new window, or jump on your phone and look up the definition. Moratorium is defined as a temporary prohibition of an activity. My guess is that the artist was demanding an end to violence of the decade, but also an end to the Vietnam War. Briefly describe your interpretation of the artwork. The artwork is about demanding an end to violence and the Vietnam War. I see this through the camouflage texture of paint and the use of an inverted flag and the word moratorium. That is my interpretation. If you have a different interpretation, that is valid as long as you think through all of the points that bring you to that conclusion. All right. So those are the answers. That is your review for the exercises. Hopefully understanding these and talking through them will help clear up some information and guide you through the midterm exam.